Hi, this is Era, the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast, where I learn about, celebrate, and discuss hot topics with creators from all over the world.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era, and today I'm excited to be bringing you Mr. Vijay Sappani. Maybe he has a reputation as a troublemaker in the community. I joke about that. He's got a lot of opinions, and I like his opinions, and I can't wait for him to share that with you. How I met Vijay was actually through an organization through Tamil culture called Sri Lankans Without Borders, or SLWB. I think it was like at least 7 to 10 years ago. I feel like it was quite a long time ago. But anyways, I've been kind of just keeping an eye on Vijay and kind of what he's been up to. And when I saw, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, something he posted about on Facebook or LinkedIn around TerrAscend, which is his company that's gone public, which we'll talk about later. I reached out and I was curious. We did an article or interview with him for TamilCulture.com. And, I felt like a podcast might be something that might give you a bit more, or give him a platform to kind of share a bit more about his journey and, some of the opinions that he has. So without further ado, I'll let Vijay kind of introduce himself. So Vijay, tell the people who you are.
Thanks, Shara. I think you started off the right way, Troublemaker. I like to be that way. I don't want that title going to somebody else, but that's the fun part. I think, if you got an opinion, you've got to speak your opinion. And if you got an opinion that you would say to one person and another person, you give a different opinion, then you're not really you. But I think I've enjoyed being that person, and it's been definitely a journey, and looking forward to this.
I know you would consider yourself a troublemaker. Maybe people have told you that. Why do you think that is? Is it because you speak your mind, you're a straight shooter? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, look, I'm opinionated. I'm not afraid to have an opinion. I'm not afraid to speak my opinion, and I'm not afraid to debate my opinion. And that's where I think often people get into challenges because they get into boxes, especially in the Tamil community. There's always nuanced conversations that people will whisper and say, I kind of agree with you, but I can't say it publicly. Yeah. All that being said, a lot of things are history. Moving forward, when you look from a global perspective, again, for me, a guy, I have different Tamil identities, so it's a way bigger than, I would say, than your typical audience. But I generally believe that, if you believe in something, if you're principled about it, you've got an opinion, debate your opinion, stand by it. And if you really are convinced post-debate or debates, then, change your opinion. There's nothing wrong in it. I've changed opinions on subject matters as I grow older because I get more knowledgeable or things change. And I'm always willing to stick to my points.
Yeah, I know. I think you made a good point about, I think when you first said, some people they shared this version of their opinion with X person, and with Y person, it's a different opinion. I think it's, kind of to do with, I don't know if I want to call it cancel culture, but, I feel like there's a lost art to, even when I post something, I like to debate with people, and I don't have an opinion. I don't care if somebody has one opinion or another. I like to understand their viewpoint, but I feel like it's a lost art. I feel like if you don't agree with the majority, or at least what most people on your page or your group kind of say, I feel like it gets you in trouble. I feel like people don't really want to take the time to understand opposing views. Do you feel like that's kind of been something you've seen in your kind of experience?
Well, I think it depends on subject matter, but definitely in the Tamil community, especially if you speak politics, it does get heated. My opinion always been that, you should be able to have a calm conversation. You should be able to agree to disagree. And that's the skill set you really need to bring into business or even in your family and everywhere. And I think that's part of how Sri Lankans Without Borders came when we met. The genesis was that the conflict in Sri Lanka should not divide communities in Canada. If anything, Canadians of Sri Lankan origin should be telling Sri Lankans why they should not be fighting. We should take the Canadian culture there. But that's just not a Sri Lankan thing. It's a typical, call it diaspora culture. You've seen that with Muslims and Jews. You're seeing that now a little bit, with Indians and Pakistanis, or some of the Sikh and protests with the farmers thing going on, this pushing and shoving. So it's human nature. But I think the biggest aspect that we could do is having the ability to sit and have dialogue and have conversations and shake hands and have break the bread and move on, whether you agree or you disagree. But having the civility to have those conversations is very important. be that face to face, be that in Facebook, Twitter, wherever that might be. It's something that has to be encouraged more and more with younger generation, and debate fiercely. You have a point, speak to it, and debate fiercely, but respectful.
You said break the bread, but I think for you, it's probably more appropriately over, a plate of biryani, right? Like you have like a very famous, or at least every time I see your social media, it's something around biryani. And the reason I don't find it funny, I find it actually useful, is because I personally love biryani as well. So before we kind of get into the serious stuff, tell me a bit more about your obsession with biryani. And part two of that question is, where can I find the best biryani in both Toronto and maybe in Chennai, or wherever you're staying in India?
Yeah. Look, the serious part of the conversation is biryani. So let's that's the most important thing. No, you know what? It's funny. I mean, I grew up for most of my life in Chennai, and you've been used to the biryani culture here. But I love biryani. I just post about biryani. I don't post about my idli, dosas, pastas, and everything else.
Yeah.
And my social media ID was Biryani Baba. As a
I remember
Rajnikant
that.
fan, I use that.
Yeah.
And you kind of, it's a marketing thing, right? The only thing I talk about is biryani, but I have friends who probably eat more biryani than I. But the only thing I talk about is it. It's a branding that came around. But I've also been passionate about biryani. Every time I travel, which I do extensively, I look for good spots to scout there for biryani. So I've had biryani probably every major country that I visited, every major town. So yeah, it's I think biryani has a lot of history, but without going much into it, the Tamil biryani itself, whether you call it south of Kanyakumari or north of Kanyakumari, is biryani or biryani, however you want to call it, has a lot of followers. In terms of what I like in the Greater Toronto, again, it's what kind of biryani do you like? Do you like the long basmati, the sambar? See, but generally, I like in Chennai we have Kalapakati, which is more or less like an Anjapur Karaikudi style. There's also one place called Bangalore Biryani, which is a takeout shop at Kennedy and 7. They're really good. And surprisingly, I'll tell you, one of the better ones I like is the Babu Biryani in Richmond Hill. They make they have a Pakistani style, which is really good. There's a few takeout spots. There's a Malayali shop by, I think it's Eglinton and Dixie, Taste of Malayalis. They have a Malayali style biryani, which is really good with egg. Goes really well with the beef curry and stuff and fish curry. So there's a few good spots you can find. Barbecue tonight at I think it's again somewhere in Mississauga. It's Burlington and Huron, Ontario, I believe. Very popular combination of Indian Pakistani style. These are like the busy places. Good Tamil ones that people make and give from the home. Those are the best ones you can ever get.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. That's good. Some good intel. I might try that over the weekend. Now for the meat of the matter, which is, let's talk about weed. I'm just kidding. Let's talk about cannabis. So, when I first heard, like when you first put that announcement that, TerrAscend, when I first heard about it, you might have obviously been working on it for years before that. I was like, I think it was kind of the beginning of kind of the cannabis boom. Obviously it took you guys a long time to kind of put that all together, generate sales, go public. But, how did the team for TerrAscend come together, and what made you specifically interested in kind of getting into the medical cannabis space?
Yeah, look, I'm a pharmacist. That's what I went to school for. I spent 2 decades in pharma. I worked for the former health minister. So I have a long-standing history in pharmaceutical, medical side of the business. I've worked with narcotics before. I've done, work in the security side of things. So narcotics, deviations, all of that has been kind of an area of, call it expertise, if I could say that. And, when medical cannabis came, somebody approached me and said, there's this new narcotic, health can I was bringing in, we need some advisory. I really thought it's a new version of OxyContin. When they said it's medical marijuana, I'm like, boss, this is ganja. Like, really. And I started reading up quite a bit. Also, my daughter's got special needs. She's got autism-like symptoms, a rare genetic disorder. Happy to chat about it in length and why I think people like us should be doing more genetic matching than horoscope matching. Different conversation, but it kind of got me to read up a little bit on cannabinoids. So all these things were happening at one time. I was also going through restructuring in the pharma industry, layoffs. So a lot of things running in my head saying, I want to be my own businessman. I want to be my controlling my own fate, not to be struck with big corporates getting merged and getting laid off again and again. Literally started off actually thinking about opening a Subway. And then one thing led to another thing. I thought, okay, I'm a pharmacist. Maybe I should go to a medical building pharmacy. I'm not an entrepreneur. My dad was a prof in IIT in India. I did not come from a typical entrepreneurship background. So very hesitant to even think about starting a business. But circumstances was kind of convincing me to more towards it. Everything was falling in place. My two partners, one of them runs one of the largest pharmacy chains in Ontario. Other one comes from a financial real estate background. We came together and said, this is an opportunity. Let's get going. That's how we started. It was a journey of a lifetime, I can tell you. Our facility cost us $60,000 a month for almost 18 months to 2 years. We had an empty facility. Starting of the month, I would put $20,000 into an empty facility. That's how much I was burning in cash. And my friends would want me, dude, you had so much of business opportunities, you never got into it. And then you went to this extreme where I was borrowing at 12%, I was borrowing at 18% on my house, trying to keep the business afloat until we can get a license. Wow. But that was just the journey of starting. Early days was very painful, but also we were kind of so-called visionaries. We were doing things a little bit different. Everybody looked at cannabis as a cultivation business. We are pharma people. We said we're not farmers. So we wanted to be in the heart of the city. Our facility was in Mississauga. Everybody was going to the boonies to look at it from a cultivation perspective. We looked at how do you take medical cannabis and make pills and lotions and creams, and not typically as what somebody would call a pothead would be thinking. It's not about how do you get high. We really thought there's an opportunity with seniors and average people to find an alternative to opioids and other painkillers and other sleep aids. And that's how it was born. Definitely not. I can tell you that every cannabis entrepreneur today, if you ask them if they had known what they're going to go through, would they have started the business? 100% would say no.
What were some of the big challenges other than burning through tens of thousands of dollars on empty facility? Did you have any legislation challenges? Did you have any other unforeseen challenges that just kind of popped up on this course?
Yeah, look. Any business has its tangible and non-tangible. This being a highly regulated business, the things that we control are the things we don't control. Yeah. And being a new business and governments changing, the worst thing was your regulators didn't know what to do with. That was the worst part. We're dealing with something very new, very politically sensitive. People don't know what to do with it. It came with a little bit of a court order. So the unknowns were scary. But it was even more scary when we talked to the regulators in Health Canada. We could tell they didn't know what they were supposed to do in 3 months from now, and that was the biggest thing. Big issues were burning money through and not knowing when things would come through. Security clearance was a big pain for many of them. We waited about 7-8 months. We knew people were waiting longer for that. So the unknowns were scary. But then every phase you clear, you don't know how long the next phase is going to be. You didn't know when your license is going to come.
Yep.
And without much of those, raising capital was hard. Very early days when people didn't know about cannabis, a lot of social stigma around it. Banks would not give you a bank account, which even happens to some extent today. But I think, all three of us had our skill sets and knowledge in some of the things we've done in the past, helped us channelize through it. Frankly, most of cannabis at that time were either people from the legacy side, basement growers, or Bay Street guys who either didn't understand regulations, pharma, or were not so-called sophisticated, which kind of helped us through what we were trying to do.
As you kind of, you talked about some of the challenges you had, from a business perspective, and, being, as far as I know, probably the only, if not one of a few group of Tamil entrepreneurs in the cannabis space, cannabis is, like you said, people don't really understand it. It's a natural product, but people don't understand it. There's a negative connotation associated with it. So within the Tamil community or just people around you, did you hear any skepticism or just negative vibes around why are you choosing this business? This is such a bad business to be in from a perception point of view versus forgetting the numbers. Did you hear a lot of that, or is that just me?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely in cannabis. But then isn't that generally in life, skepticism and negativism is common in everything you do. You know, you try to wear some funky shorts and go, your parents are going to tell you something. If your parents are cool with it, your neighbors will say something. There's always, things in our society where you always are going to get people encouraging you, saying, it's okay, pa, pannu pa, பரவாயில்ல, என்ன இந்த வாட்டி fail பண்ணிட்டியா, அடுத்த வாட்டி பண்ணலாம். Or there'll be like people saying, என்னது 90 தான் வாங்கினியா, 10% So, sometimes it's funny, but that's reality of life. Now,
Yeah.
with cannabis, obviously, a lot of that comes with ignorance. Ignorance starting with me. I mean, I didn't know much about the use of medical cannabis until I started really reading upon it,
Yes.
looking into it, talking to patients. When I started really talking to seniors, that's when I started getting confidence in the business. So definitely starting up from family, friends, but skepticism more in terms of, hey, are you sure this is the one you want to get? People were worried, are you going to get targeted by the drug mafia? How does this happen?
Yeah.
People are like, you can't travel to US, you can't go here, you can't go there. So part of that is, genuine concern. Part of it is, community chatter. People are there who are always going to chatter and say things they want to say. And then, but the best part of it comes with friends and family who are saying, Vijay, I always believed you will be a successful entrepreneur. Always believed, you've got a vision for things. You do things what you believe. So, I had a lot of backing from friends that helped me get through. Having mentors is a very important thing. I've been very lucky to have a lot of mentors. I've done even focused on youth mentorship, but every aspect of that business stage, reaching out to mentors and getting advice, be that regulatory, be that business planning, that helps. Having those mentors, your mentors are always going to be positive or give you constructive criticism. They're
Mm.
not going to give you so-called negativism. So it's been my culture. It's been my work culture. I still have mentors. I'm always looking for mentors. Everybody needs mentors, and mentors are the ones who are going to give you positive vibes with sense of expertise.
Yep.
It's not like your neighbor who knows nothing about it telling you about this, and because somebody said this, I saw a forward on WhatsApp.
Yep.
So yeah, went through it, had a share of ups and downs, but definitely the people you will definitely also get to know who are your true friends at these moments.
Tell us about the process of kind of going public and being valued at $1 billion. Like you said, you went from like this low of waiting and burning through cash, and then the end result. Obviously, you worked you guys have to work hard, you guys overcame a lot of obstacles, and then that magical moment of kind of going public and getting that valuation. Like walk us through that.
Yeah, no, I think it was the first time for me. It's always the first time for everybody, and the market was hot. We were a little bit differentiated. Ours was a very medical focused strategy, pharmaceutical focused strategy. So it helped us a little bit. Again, good old friend of mine in Canaccord, known him through the Liberal Party for a couple of decades, helped me open the door for a meeting with the chairman of Canaccord. It was a game changer. Until then, we were struggling. Friends and families, a little bit of strategic investors, but that was a game changer getting into Bay Street. And as Bay Street started looking at a business plan, we started hearing comments like, for the first time, I'm seeing a real business plan. For the first time, I'm seeing a real cannabis team. Our management team was really getting, the respect for what we deserved. I think going public, there's multiple ways. You do a reverse takeover, you go naturally. We did a straight IPO, which was not what everybody else did, but we started off well. But I think we were also hitting a point where we realized what our strengths are and what we need to do. So we partnered with a New York-based multi-billion-dollar fund called JW Asset Management. I think they're coming in. Our stock went from $110 to I think 550 overnight, and then it's been a gradual growth. It's not been an easy one. 3 months back, our stock was at $20. We are now at about 13.10 because our CEO stepped down. So we were about 4 billion. We dropped. You go through ups and downs. I don't think you look at it, what's my stock tomorrow. You're really looking at a long 5-year term. We were also early movers to think very strategically. We were the first Canadian cannabis company to get a sales license even without having a cultivation. We were the first Canadian cannabis company to be selling in US. We were the first company to be selling in Canada, US, and Europe. So we were really thinking outside the box. We were listed on the CXC. A lot of people thinking about going and getting listed on the biggest stock exchange. We realized that there's a challenge with it.
Yep.
Canopy Growth, one of the biggest cannabis companies then and now, took 25% equity in us. They can't go into US. We had good lawyers. And that's what really helped us is bringing in the experts, thinking outside the box, and doing things that we were not afraid to do when people are saying you shouldn't be doing it. And it paid off. We are now, I think, the number 4 largest US MSO, one of the largest cannabis companies in Canada, one of the few to have a license to export to Europe. And we've really focused now on growth opportunities. I strongly believe that TerrAscend will be in the top 3 in the world sooner than later.
How active are you still in TerrAscend? Is it something that, because I know you have a bunch of different interests outside of it, or not a bunch, but other interests as well. Do you still spend a lot of time with TerrAscend, or has your role changed from 5 years ago to now?
Yeah, significantly. I stepped aside a couple of years back. I'm still a large shareholder, one of the top shareholders. I actually have been buying. I've been selling and buying. I'm now actually buying a lot of TerrAscend shares. I think it's a steal for me to buy now. But no, I'm not involved in operations at all. I'm not in the board. I'm not a C-suite exec. Nothing. But I know I'm always there as a shareholder. I'm there to support the company. If the execs have questions, I'm there to help them out. So that's my role, and that's something I'm also learning as you go. You have the founder syndrome. You have to find the right time to pass it off to the experts and move on. I'm invested in about 75 companies. My family office, Ela Capital, is probably one of the largest in the world, among the top 5, maybe globally. We have cannabis companies in Europe. We have now companies in Australia, New Zealand, in India. We have a cannabis license in India. I'm keeping my eyes on Sri Lanka. So we are all over the world. What I've done is I've looked at it and said, where is my strength as a mover and shaker? That's cannabis. That's where I've been growing globally. But even within cannabis, we've gone from cultivation to medical cannabis to pharmaceutical, and even recreational products. So diversifying into different categories. I've invested into cannabis dosing companies. Some of these companies I'm very actively involved. Some of these companies more passively involved. We have also diversified out of cannabis. We were early investors in Momenta Space, TerrAscend, so in technology companies. I come from a tech school, tech background in India, leveraging my classmates and my networks in Silicon Valley. We're investing quite a bit in e-commerce, sustainability space, big believer in climate change, vegan. So that's a growth sector. We're seeing some good growth in that space. And general venture capital, we're investing quite a bit in the venture capital space. Now looking at growth opportunities in India, Australia, different markets, and doing what typical Tamils, Indians would do, investing in real estate.
There's a lot that you kind of unpacked there. I think the first is really, the fact that you understood that it was time for you to kind of move on. First, we'll focus on that part. So how did you specifically know that it was time for you to move on? Like you said, it's hard for founders to kind of do that. You've been there since the beginning, since the inception of something. How did you know that for you, it was time to kind of move on and, look at other interests?
I think the company was growing bigger than me, and I was good for what it was. I didn't have the C-suite experience to take the company to the next level, but also partly, I was going through a fatigue. I've been burning myself too long. Needed to step aside for somebody smarter than me to come and take and run the company, and that also gave me the bandwidth and freedom to do other things, other cannabis, non-cannabis ventures. I've always had a very active, philanthropy lifestyle. My wife and I are very active in that. We founded quite a few very successful organizations, and I wanted to go spend some time on that. I wanted to go spend some time on rare diseases, but wanted to get. I think the most important thing was I was starting to realize that there are way smarter people than me who can run this company at a way better way, and I wanted to focus on where my skill sets were. And which is what I did. I realized I'm really good at strategy, starting companies. Ever since I've started about 6 companies, all of them have been fairly successful. And that's what I'm focused now was it is to my skill sets. And I'm not the best operator. I could be an operator, but that's not what I'm really good at. It's easier to hire a smart operator and let them run it than me trying to do 100 different things. I think as a good founder, you will realize that when you become useless to your company, getting through that process, you want to step aside and bring somebody who's really smarter than you, and be there for the company as a sounding board when things are needed. But that's the best thing you can do for your company.
Obviously, money is a byproduct of kind of all this hard work that you've kind of done. And people always say, money can't buy happiness. How do you feel about that statement, given the fact that I'm sure the wealth you've kind of created for yourself and your family through TerrAscend going public has enabled you to kind of invest, start businesses, spend more time with family, some of these more specific interests that you have?
It's funny, I remember growing up of a child of a person who was in a university, and moving to Canada, 6%, 4% return on RRSP was exciting. These days, we don't invest in cannabis if you don't find a 10x return. Putting $1 million, I like to see 10 million. And since TerrAscend, we've gone in multiples and multiples. The sad reality of why the rich get richer is the opportunities. I get access to some of this early pre-IPO, early pre-seed, seed kind of opportunities, but you would not get as a typical person.
Yes.
Sure, it has a lot of risk, but with the risk comes the rewards. Money doesn't buy happiness, but I would rather be rich and unhappy than be poor and unhappy. So has money had an impact on me? No, I mean, you can see, that's a conversation among my friends. I still buy my clothes in Walmart. I'm cheap that way in many ways. I have a lot of my lifestyle hasn't changed, but definitely a lot of my lifestyle in some other ways have changed.
Yes.
I used to travel coach class for the longest period, and once a few times started traveling business class and started realizing, how it actually has an impact on me from a mindset. Travel comfortably, walk out if I get into meetings. So some of those things I've made changes. I do fly business. I fly private sometimes when needed. So I still buy my clothes in Walmart. That's the message I keep telling people. I don't see a value in spending, $500 on a shirt that I don't need. So it's more about I spend on things that I like to spend. And one of the things that my wife and I, we're very believe is our philanthropy side. I remember early days, I used to tell my wife, I never have to worry about a mortgage. I'll full-time work for charity. And my wife used to remind me, that mortgage conversation was long gone.
Yeah.
It's still starting new companies. You're still investing in new companies. You're not doing that. So we started the Sappani Family Foundation. And one of the things we do is very early on, we kind of do often 50% of what we invest goes to our foundation. So let's say I get 100 shares from a company I invest. We actually take and put 50 shares into the foundation right in the beginning, so that greed doesn't get into your head at the later stage. So I know we've been cutting a lot more checks. We've given a few $1 million to charities, and we're committed to give a lot more. And we're doing quite a bit in Sri Lanka, India, Canada. So definitely not complaining about the money part. The more money I make, I'm hoping that the more money you can give back. But I think you nailed it. Money is a byproduct of success. And I think I would say to some extent, it is what it is. I'm not chasing money, but I'm chasing success. And you measure sometimes success by how much money you made.
Yeah.
It also gets to you at some point where, you want to be like, hey, I want to be in that 10, 20 million, 50, 100. Then you're like, I want to be a $500 million. And then you're going like, I want to be a billionaire. So you definitely are chasing, but the biggest aspect is, has money corrupted you? I'm not definitely looking at retirement. I don't think money has corrupted me. My friends have not changed. My attitude has not changed. If anything, I've gone smaller in my friend circles. I've gone bigger and deeper in my philanthropy. And every day is a learning day. I'm learning, and I'm making mistakes. I'm learning from my mistakes. I'm always taking feedback from friends and family. So
one thing I'm curious about, actually two things, is Ela Capital is the name of your family office. So number one is, what is a family office for those of you that don't know? I've heard that term. I kind of understand the term, but maybe you can break it down a bit more.
Sure. Ela Capital is my family. It's named after my daughter, Ela, and Ela is a Tamil Sanskrit word meaning Mother Earth, which is a perfect fit for my history. But family office traditionally are generally people who have inherited a lot of money. They have the trust money, or people who made money. Money is very, value of money could be differentiated, but generally, people who have made money, you want to invest and manage. Typically, average people, we would go to our financial advisor in your TD, RBC, CIBC bank. Sometimes when you have a little bit more, you have wealth advisors, and then you go to this high net worth, ultra high net worth advisors. And you go to a point where you bring in those advisors into your office. So I've got about 7, 8 employees who basically manage money, look at investment strategies, and we have external advisors. But typically, family offices, they say, are in that 100 million plus, that you've got the scale that you can bring in the experts inside rather than rely on outside. That being said, family offices still also work a lot with outsiders. And there's a lot of multi-billion-dollar family offices which have just two employees.
Yeah.
Their job is to, manage your money. They're like, you will have a chief investment officer who manages your money, works with external people, and having that risk diversification, like I was saying. I don't want to have all my money in one company, in one industry, diversifying into other industries, other sectors, knowing when to sell, knowing when to buy. It's a combination of a science and art, and mostly family offices are risk diversification from internally and depending less on external advice.
For you, you mentioned, I think you invested over 75 companies. I mean, a lot of it is what you know, which is cannabis, like all over the world, and you've diversified outside of that. What has been, maybe give me a couple of companies that outside of the cannabis space, because that's what you know, but that have been kind of home runs for you, or like, you would consider things that you're proud that you invested or you did well with that investment, if you're allowed to share that.
No, happy to. I'm always, like I said, this is where I'm the troublemaker. I'll speak my mind and I don't care. But yeah, so and part of this, one of the problem out is, you don't hear much about family offices because they're very, very, very private. One of the biggest challenges I will tell you as a brown guy who didn't come from a connected family in Canada was really getting good tax advice and advice. You always hear about this Cayman, British version, that people don't share much on. There's one thing about wealth creation. There's another thing about wealth preservation.
Yes.
It was very hard for me to get there, but I've kind of got to a point where I think I can say I'm a little knowledgeable, built my networks. I'm also sharing that with other friends. And people who reach out, I generally do where I have the time capacity to say, this is how you do it. But that's one of the problems with family offices. They're very private. You don't hear much about family offices. Most family offices don't have a website. They don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
But just coming down to this, I've done quite a bit outside of cannabis. We do anywhere from 25K to 5 million, depending on what the company is. Momentous Space is one of them. TerrAscend recently got acquired. We were early investors. I'm investing a lot in tech space. A lot of my high school friends are in the tech space. I've done quite well in Silicon Valley. So reaching out to some of them, trying to understand early investment stages, and try to invest early on. Some of these I've seen exits. Some of these are, again, because I got in at the seed stage, they're in growth phases, but I know I'll probably get 5, 10, 20x returns, some probably 30, 40. There are things like, I think there's something called Republic right now, which has recently come where you could go invest as a non-accredited investor. Accredited is generally, I think, 250K plus in annual income or something like that, 5 million or whatever net worth you need to have. But which average people are way below that. When you're below that, I think Republic is a great way to invest through that. But there's also Angel List. There's a bunch of other avenues where people can try to get into venture capital, which traditionally the rich people have always had access and average people have not.
Have there been any big losers or any losers that, you're like, I should have seen that coming, or losers in your portfolio that you're like, I didn't see that coming?
Touchwood, nothing has gone on yet. But there were investments where I was expecting 10x, 20x. I'll be happy to get my principal back. There are investments that I expected a 20x, 10x, 15x kind of a return in cannabis that I got a 5x. So, and that's absolutely, I come from a guy where getting a 6% mutual fund return was like, wow, 6%, that is amazing. Macha, and then here I am, I look at it and say, I was expecting a 10, 15x. Why did I get a 3x or a 2x? But, failures are bound to happen. That's something I consistently keep hearing, that you will get companies that go under or you will not get a return of investment. So far, no, but, I'm prepared for those, which is also why we diversify your risk. We're also in a lot of companies in early stages. So it might happen in some of the investments we made. We don't know, but anywhere from 100 to 200 decks we get a week. We are getting to get a lot more decks. Initially, you're hunting for more and more, and then you come to a point like, God, I don't have time for this. But a lot of investments, we also go through networks. We spend a lot of time talking to family offices that we know, friends. Those private deals you generally never hear, getting to invest into them. Robinhood, we knew about Robinhood. So a lot of those things, long before you see in the media, we talk to private networks, and a lot of the cannabis investments, for example, I bring in some of my friends who want to come in, and a lot of my friends in fintech, technology, other sectors will open up and say, I've got this opportunity, I can give you 100 grand to invest. So that's how we all share information and co-invest and partner and collaborate.
Yeah, you make a good point about not just the topic of like wealth preservation, but I think in general, a lot of people are not comfortable talking about money. I think money is like a taboo subject, even specifically in the Tamil community. I can kind of see why. I mean, some people are maybe shy, or like they don't want to tell people how much they have because they're afraid of things will happen to them. But I feel like money is a taboo subject that shouldn't be a taboo subject. I feel like it's just a tool at the end of the day. And like you said, it could be used as a measure of success, or it's like something you use to kind of measure against yourself. Like, am I improving? Am I making better decisions? But I feel like it's treated differently. So yeah, I think it's a fair point that you mentioned about that.
No, I mean, it's some people are shy, some people feel you've got arrogant.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes what is the difference between 200 million and 250 million, or
Yeah.
200 million, 202 million? But that 2 million could be a lot for somebody else.
Yes.
They're like, wow, $2 million. But so it's again, it's also, I was going to say, talk about money because, one of my friends in Sri Lanka, he's got two Mitsubishis in Colombo. He parks one in his house, parks another one in a different place. Asked him why. Having two Mitsubishis parked out to the house is an invitation to get kidnapped. So different people have different motivations to talk and not to talk. Some people like to talk about how much money they have. But I don't talk about how much money I have, but I'm not shy to talk about the real genesis of it. I don't really talk about what's my bank account, but I'm happy to share information. I'm always looking to reach out. Great example, your last podcast with this guy, Mayu, young Tamil guy. I read about how he has got 41 investments in real estate. I reached out to him, say, hey, love it, what you're doing. There's another guy, another Tamil guy, Jay, does a lot of work in the real estate space. Sudhar Kunan from the Tamil community. I've invested quite large in his company. I've known Sudhar as a friend, great guy, super duper guy. It's not just me investing to support him. I've got a good set of my non-Tamil friends to invest with him. That's the other thing is about you want to talk because there are those who will not feel happy about it, they'll badmouth you, they'll jealousy, but there are those who will come out to support you, right? I've been working with a few Tamil entrepreneurs to co-invest with them. There's a couple of other so-called venture capitalists in Tamil community. Bahi is a good friend of mine. We share notes. He comes to me sometimes asking about things. I go to him asking about things. So that's the bigger aspect I'd like to see is, I don't want to say the word younger Tamils, but I think the next generation of people should be broad-minded to say, this is what I'm doing. I want to co-invest with you. Can you advise me? Can I advise you? That's the kind of thing which it should be happening. Is not about feeling jealousy or having the crab mentality. It's about how can we all work to push ourselves together. It's about to talk about the Sri Lankan Tamil community. There's about 5, 6, probably 7, 8 of them that I'm currently working with in a large scale, $1 million plus co-investing. And they also help me, open up opportunities to me. They advise me on things they're doing. I love to see that opportunity circle going bigger and bigger, right? That's how we do. If there's been a couple of Tamil guys in the cannabis company industry who've come out to me asking for help, typically we would charge them a lot of money. I'm like, buddy, you're from my side. I'm happy to help you. There's so many hours you can obviously give, and that's what we try to do. So, and I expect, I'm hoping that this will motivate other Tamil entrepreneurs to open up and say, Vijay, you know what? I'm doing this in real estate. Do you want to come in? Or I'm investing in this tech space. I'm doing this in VC world. Do you want to come in? I might say no, but I'll be happy that somebody's reaching out. And I'm always open if somebody reaches out to me to say, happy to share my knowledge and happy to co-invest, partner where possible.
That's a great attitude. Something I want to highlight because you mentioned it earlier as kind of a quick thing, but you kind of, you talk about your daughter. You obviously named your family office after her, so she's obviously very near and dear to your heart. And then you made a comment about kind of, people talk about horoscope matching versus like genetic matching. I'd love for you to kind of dig into that further. I mean, you said it very quickly, but I remembered and I want to kind of get back to that.
Yeah, look, my daughter has a rare genetic disorder. Me and my wife, me and wife, we know each other and we are happen to be from the same subcaste. I don't talk about caste, but I I will say, because I have Sri Lankan roots, we are like, the Vellala community, which
Okay.
is large in Sri Lanka too. But the reason I say that is she's got a rare inherited genetic disorder that we were carriers. We're probably going back to 5 generations, people have been carriers. Everybody has some kind of put it in a 30 seconds, you have A and a B, a set of each pair of genes, even if one is default, which tends to happen in thousands of your genes. If the other one is working, it tends to work well. Sometimes when you're having a baby, if the husband and wife end up having the same defective gene and end up passing off the defective gene, that's how genetic disorders happen. Almost 75% of genetic disorders could be prevented if you really did like a whole exome sequencing. And that a lot of the times happen when you tend to marry within your own community groups, cultural groups, regional groups. So I've never hesitated. Again, this is another thing. I've been an active volunteer with SAC for the longest time, helped them with fundraising, supporting them on policy. And one of the things you've learned is in our cultural communities, but in any community, there's always a stigma. People don't like to talk about the children thing. And then I kind of talk about it only because people should learn from it and understand you need to come out. If you got a child with special needs, there's nothing to feel worried or ashamed about it. Come out, seek the help you need. That's what I did. I've not only sought the help for my daughter, I've started a foundation in that rare disease space. We've grown it. We're funding research. We've got now a gene therapy research and a bunch of things happening, moving really forward. But I'm also trying to create awareness within my own cousins and relatives and friends and saying, before you have a marriage, you got to do a genetic screening because there's the possibility that you could avoid something. And this happens a lot in cultural communities. And awareness is below 1%.
How do you what is this genetic test? Is it like a specific way of getting it? Is it like a private test that you pay for? Is it publicly funded? Like, where do you do this?
So unfortunately in Canada, it's a publicly funded. When I was doing it, probably when it started off, it was about 5 million. Now you can get it for like $1,500. Typically, it's like a very quick blood test. It's called whole exome sequencing, WES. And then it just gives you a genetic profile for you. It's becoming more and more so-called fashionable because a lot of people are starting to do it. You have that Me and 21 and Me, a lot of those companies doing other things for identifying things, but you could get it done in US, you could get it in other parts of the world, give or take anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000. If you have a medical condition or something like that, then in Ontario, you can get it done through the hospital. The process has become less painful, but it's still painful. Because it is not very widely prevalently available. I think it's reserved for people with medical conditions. If the doctor believes that there's a valid reason to go do a whole exome sequencing testing. That's another thing, for my daughter, they were not doing it. I had to literally fight and go to the extent of trying to sue them because I had a medical background. I understood the importance of doing that. And a lot of medical cases are misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed. And this is why you do a whole exome sequencing. That's happened with my daughter. They first misdiagnosed her with a completely different disease. I was reading up a lot on it and I said, this doesn't make sense. So we forced them 3 years after we found the right diagnosis for my daughter after doing a whole exome sequencing test.
Wow, that's amazing. I guess a question related to that is, you like you said, you had burnout, you're working long hours, you're like busy doing all these things like funding, looking at investments, doing your philanthropy work. I mean, it's good that you are doing it with your wife. So I guess you get to spend time doing that. But as an entrepreneur, I guess, investor now as well, like how do you balance all your different kind of buckets, like your family life, your work life, time with your daughter? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I think, look, balanced family life it's a cultural thing that we don't even talk about. It's the same thing whether it's India or Sri Lanka. We don't talk about these things, but it's changing. It's changing a lot. I come from a mostly business kind of a community. Half my so-called caste is in Sri Lanka. The rest are in India. They moved a lot in the 70s and 80s after 83, I lost a lot of my relatives in the 83 riots. So a lot of people have been moving. I'm starting to see that conversations with girls saying, I don't need to marry a guy who's in business. Girls are starting to interview their potential husband candidates. So there's a change happening now that during my mom's time, if my mom wanted to my dad, he would have got beaten black and blue. And that's how it has been. That's still prevalent in our culture, but it's changing. Uh, as far as me, I'm learning a lot more to be balanced. I'm a polo player. I love to play polo. So I wake up at 5 in the morning to go do my polo. I come back. I spend my mornings. Right now I'm in India, so I spend my mornings on Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, where we have companies, and then I spend my afternoons on India, Sri Lanka, Dubai, and then I spend time with the family. So I kind of charted it out and saying, this is I want to spend this 2-3 hours with my wife. This is my 2-3 hours with my daughter. This is my time to read. This is my time to watch TV. Kind of planned it out. It never works to a plan, but they used to say, fail to plan is a plan to fail. And I think as you start getting more and more busy, you want to structure it out. That's what I've done. I kind of laid it out what I'm trying to do by the day and by the hour. And sure, things will change and things will cancel and move on. It's also, you want to do things that you really like doing. I mean, starting companies is something I like. Philanthropy is something my wife and I like. We are doing some projects in Sri Lanka. We're trying to grow those things. I think I've been talking to you something about that now in Jaffna on an autism center. So for some people, it could look like work. For some people, that's doing that is fun. For some people, planting trees is work. For some people, planting trees is a stress buster. You've got to do what you've got to do, but most importantly, you've got to plan for it.
In terms of, I guess you're doing a lot of things that are setting yourself up for this, but in terms of your personal legacy, in a few sentences, like how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
That's the troublemaker. I want to be that. I speak my mind. I still don't refuse to not speak my mind. I get into trouble a little bit for that. I'm critical of the BJP on many things, and I'm in India. Sometimes people will be like, "Why do you have to say this? Can you not say this?" I say what I have to say. I've been, back in the day, I've been critical of some of the Tamil side. I've been critical of the Rajapaksa side. I speak my mind. That's me. I'm wanting to do a lot more in Sri Lanka now, wanting to do a lot more in India now. I'm going back to my roots. But I think if you call about legacy is one thing that I think my friends and my adversaries will agree is I don't refuse to not speak. I'm not selective in my choice of words. I will criticize, I will support, and I continue to do that. And I will continue to question people who are double-sided too. That's just me, and I think I'm 45. I don't know if I can change myself now. I continue to be that.
And you're a bit more a lot more global than me in the sense that you spend part of your time in Canada or Toronto, and quite a bit of your time in India as well. What has been the impact of the global Tamil community, whether it's in Toronto and Chennai, on both you and both your businesses, would you say?
It's funny. My mom was born and raised in Sri Lanka. My grandfather went to Sri Lanka early on. They grew up, continue to be identified as Indian Tamils in Sri Lanka. So when you're in Sri Lanka, you're an Indian. When you come to India, you are a Sri Lankan. As recently as probably 2 years back, my mother-in-law was having issues with her Indian passport renewal because people are like, your accent doesn't sound Indian. Like, go and get back all your documents. So identity is a thing that you continue to keep going on. It's funny, when I came to Canada, I was happy because no more about being Indian or Sri Lankan and you're a Canadian Tamil, and then you realize, oh my God, the divisions in Canada are way bigger. I've never identified myself as a so-called Tamil. That's the identity I've been growing into largely after getting into Canada, but more so now. The last probably 3 years, I'm digging more and more into my Tamil roots in Sri Lanka, but also the Chola. I'm funding a restoration of some temples in Tamil Nadu now. My wife and I committed to fund a good number of education-related projects in Sri Lanka. We're sponsoring about 100 girls. Our goal is to increase it to 1,000 girls this year or next year. I'm going back into my roots, but trying to identify yourself with your roots is a good thing. Sometimes this could be problematic. You end up being that frog in the well if you don't grow out of it. I was fortunate enough that I lived in a global community. I grew up in it. It's my choice to identify myself into my Tamil heritage and roots. And there's a large one of the things I end up seeing, it's funny, I had people accuse me saying, oh, even Tamile kadiyadu, even Malayalathukaran. When you get into the political stream, I've had people that I've been very close to trying to go and tell, this fellow is not even a real Tamil, he's from India because he's not from Sri Lanka. I laugh about all those things, because somebody wants to run for an MP seat and they're like, oh, this guy is my competition. They're like, but he's not a Tamil.
Yeah.
And, you get into all those nuances, but end of the day, I think if I have to say, the Sri Lankan Tamils in Canada has to, expand so-called identity, if that may be what the word you want to use. But part of the problem also is a lot of the Indian Tamils identify themselves with India than just being a Tamil identity, right? A lot of the Tamil identity in the diaspora is more either to do with your cultural center or your religious center, but very little to do with your personal identity. For a lot of the Tamils, the number one identity is being Tamil, which is fair to a lot of my relatives in Sri Lanka, being that Indian Tamil is part of the identity. That's the same thing from the Sri Lankan, the Jaffna Tamils. Me growing up in India, it's a different thing, and that's what you would see with the Indian Tamils in the diaspora. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to do on the global Tamil side of things beyond India, Sri Lanka, in Singapore and many of those places. That's something I would love to see happening, be that at home in Toronto, but globally, trying to bring in that, Tamil identity from a cultural perspective, from a religious perspective. When I say religious, going back to the Chola dynasty, looking at our history and promoting some of those things. That's my interest. But other than that, I don't get bogged down by identity. I want my Tamil identity to be something that is pushing me forward, not pulling me backward.
Yeah, it's interesting you kind of talk about, obviously when you think Tamil, you think predominantly India, Sri Lanka, but being part of Tamil culture, I realize there's so many Tamil communities all over the world, like Mauritius, South Africa, I think some of the Nordic countries as well. I kind of knew, but I didn't really know how big the communities were. So that's a good point.
I'm actually just working on a project that I'm trying to fund with the University of Madras, but trying to get somebody with a PhD in Tamil to actually dig up and first curate all the content on Tamils in the world, but also do more research on the next generation of Tamils. Somebody who's a third generation. I found a person whose last name was Sappani in South Africa, third generation, fourth generation, not related from my so-called subcaste, but I was trying to help them find out their identity roots in India. But it's amazing how that second, third, fourth generation have evolved. So I'm working on a project, that will help curate all the content, but also help identify what the newer generations, the fourth generation Tamil in South Africa or in Mauritius or Fiji is like, and how do we really connect them to, the so-called hub of Tamil.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Love to hear more about that. The last question for today, and we're gonna probably definitely do another podcast, hopefully with Vijay if he's willing. But the last question for you, Vijay, today is, what's a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow or just aspiring Tamil creators?
Look, I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice, but I would say expand, right? I mean, expand the horizons. Canada is a beautiful country. I still keep telling, today I'm blessed enough that I can pick and choose where I want to go live, any part of the world, India, Sri Lanka, France, Malta, Australia. And I still say Canada is home, Toronto is home. This is the place I want to be. Nothing like having my kotu roti in Babu. It is what it is. I might complain about everything, but I love Canada. That's what I want to be, and I think we have a ton of opportunity. I think that the Tamils are a little bit late, kind of an immigrants to the Punjabis and the Indians and some of the other, and the Jews and the Italians are way ahead of us. But you're starting to see a lot of Tamil lawyers, doctors, engineers. There needs to be, I think, in my opinion, a lot more networking. And I'll say this for the being the troublemaker, the Canadian Tamil Chamber of Commerce has become the Canadian Mortgage and Sales, Representative Chambers of Commerce. Nothing wrong about it, but everybody I see that is a mortgage rep or a sales broker. There's a lot of smart Tamil entrepreneurs. There's a lot of young, ambitious Tamil entrepreneurs. There's a lot of young, talented, wanna be something Tamil professionals create a platform. Come up and use this platform not just to be in that world, but use the platform to partner with broader group. Probably a decade and a half back in the day, I was telling the CTC why they need to work with the Indian community, why they need to work with the Indian Tamil community. I've always been that broader approach person. That doesn't mean you're diluting identity. In fact, I'm going back to my identity now. The one thing I would say is get out, organize within the community, because that's important. Create platforms for young professionals, business entrepreneurs. And if there are such opportunities, I'm happy to be a part of it, to support it, to use that platform to get into the other ones, the other outside of Tamil community. Back in the day at Sri Lankans Without Borders, I had an event between Sri Lankans Without Borders, Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Jewish community, the Ismaili community. We brought in about 6 different cultural communities to do a professional event. That's the kind of things you want to start doing. Have mentors. I think it's been the greatest blessing for me in my life. I've had great mentors. I continue to have mentors. I speak to mentors at least 3-4 times a week now because I always have issues that I want to get advice on. And sometimes I'm actually, one of my mentors is about 15 years old. He's helping me on my polo.
That's awesome.
That's the thing,
Yeah.
age is not a barrier. You go to somebody you think is better than you, who can give you good advice. And that's what you want to do. So have good mentors, reach out. And, the last thing I will say is be bold. Have an opinion. Don't shy to have an opinion. Speak your opinion. And you want to definitely be able to be respectful with your opinion, and debate your opinions and the things I do, and agree to disagree. That's about it. Being controversial is not a bad thing,
Yes.
but have the ability to agree to disagree, which is always being a contentious thing. When I criticize the LTT, people will tell me, oh, you're a Sri Lankan agent, you're an Indian agent. And when I criticize Rajapaksa, I've taken a lot of heat from groups like Sluna. I'll say it now. Fuck, they want to go sue me? Sue me. I've got way better lawyers than you. But those guys are fucking idiots. I'm sorry if I'm using words I should be using, but that's what it is. There are a lot of people who want to divide communities, and it becomes harder on younger people. And I think, have an opinion. Don't be afraid to have an opinion. There's nothing like a wrong opinion, but that should not stop you from having a debate and being respectful to other people and grow and broaden a horizon and networks. That's about it.
Many words of wisdom there. Now we're going to move into the last kind of speed run that I talked about. So again, I call it Would You Rather. I'm going to ask you a few questions. You have 2 options. You got to pick one. First one, I know you love your biryani, so I'm not going to ask about that. This is going to be, if you had a choice between mutton rolls and koth roti, what do you go with?
Mutton rolls, any day.
Finally, somebody
Ad Babu.
Oh, yeah?
Ad Babu. It's got to be Ad Babu.
Okay, would you rather be Warren Buffett or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk. I'm a big believer in taking risk and being an innovator. But as I grow older, maybe my money investing will be like Warren Buffett.
And I know you said, obviously you've generated wealth for yourself, but you're still frugal in certain ways. So I'm wondering if that applies to cars. So would you choose, say, a Toyota or Honda, or would you choose a Tesla or, another high-end or, more glamorous vehicle?
My car is a 12-year-old car, but I'm definitely moving towards a Tesla just because it's got so many features I love, and it's an electric car. I want an electric car. So.
And the final question is Canada or India?
Oh, any day Canada.
Oh,
It's the question is it Chennai or is it Madras? Madras is an emotion, Chennai is reality. And that's what India is emotion that I'm connected to,
yes.
but Canada is home.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Vijay, for kind of hopping on. I think I learned a ton. I learned a ton about you as well during this conversation. I'm pretty sure we're going to have you back on if you're willing to, because there's a lot of things you kind of mentioned here, like wealth preservation and a few other topics, which I think need to be delved into. For the people that are kind of listening, you're doing a lot of things. Like you said, you're looking for people to reach out to you, whether it's mentorship or business opportunities. So if people want to connect with you, how do they connect with you?
So let me correct that a little bit.
Yes.
Definitely not looking for people to reach out to me because I'm already overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
I'm guilty of not responding to people at sometimes because I realize at some point I spend 2-3 hours a day just responding to messages on LinkedIn. But that being said, where possible, I will try and guide. business opportunities, absolutely. I'm looking, like I said, I reached out to Mayu. That's an opportunity, something I want to help out and be helped out by people in the community. I'm also wanting to bring, possibly give you guys, some referrals to a broader base of global Tamils to come on your show. I have a good friend who's a venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, Indian Tamil, could talk about that. He is a billionaire. So there's a lot of those kind of people I want to, get exposure to and support where I can. So happy to do that. Happy to get into group conversations with people, primarily on business, entrepreneurship, young professionals kind of conversations, but definitely not shying away from political conversations. And lastly, very, very, very much interested to see those young people. When I say young, I'm being relative. It could be 75, it could be 50, it doesn't matter. Who want to do some so-called philanthropic work in Sri Lanka. That's a definite area of interest for me. I don't know Jaffna as much as many others would do. I'm getting to learn Sri Lanka a lot now. I have so-called set of expertise, network access that I think I can bring in. I want to see if I can help young girls, young children from an education perspective. I'm actively lobbying to get an IIT open in Sri Lanka. I'm actively lobbying AIMS, which is one of the largest medical institutions in India, to be opened in Jaffna. I'm trying to see if we can create a system where teachers in the Northeast could come for training in Tamil Nadu. So I'm doing something within my scope and my bandwidth, but definitely if there's opportunities to collaborate, especially supporting Girl Child and especially children in the Northeast, it's an area of interest. Love to talk about it, partner, collaborate, but very much open to anything where time permits.
And how would they reach you? Is it like LinkedIn? Is there like a specific way that, obviously you're busy, but is there a specific way you prefer to be reached, if at all?
No, I think it's not hard to find me.
Okay.
But LinkedIn is fine. So I'll say this, my EA has access to all my emails and my LinkedIn, everything. Sometimes they're actually responding on my behalf. That's another thing is, having somebody you can trust and delegate, which is very important. A lot of my work is delegated downward. But LinkedIn, if you know my email, if you know my phone number, reach out. But also, I would say reach out to you. That's a good way for people to reach out to you, so that some of the abuses can be filtered off. But listen, I'm open. I'm open for ideas, and if somebody wants to reach out on LinkedIn, happy to do that. Sometimes I might be a little bit delayed in responding just with my work and my travel time and stuff. But I'm also just, again, throwing this idea. I'm probably going to challenge my friend Bai Kandavel and others out there. I saw Roy's interview. I've always admired Roy. Super smart guy. I still remember reading how he started from the mailroom and went up all the way in CI. Those are like, I've met a lot of Tamil people who don't know who Roy is. Again, Roy has opinions that not everybody may agree with. I have opinions with a lot of people may not agree with, but very successful people that young Tamil should look up to. And if there's ways and opportunities that some of these people could come together, create a platform forum that will help from a business side, professional side of things, definitely I'm interested in something like that.
And we're working on something, so we'll talk about that. But
definitely.
But yeah, thank you again, Vijay. And before we kind of end this podcast, the normal PSA, which is for anyone listening, please give this podcast a 5 out of 5. It really helps increase our visibility on whatever platform you're listening to, whether that's Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts. Please comment, share, and like our stuff on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Twitter, whatever floats your boat. And if you have any feedback on or ideas on future guests or topics, please reach out to me at hello@thetamilcreator.com. Thank you again, Vijay, and I'm really looking forward to the audience listening to this. I feel like it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the feedback and definitely look forward to coming back again if I'm allowed.
You're definitely allowed, so we'll have that there.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.